Hello, Fridgelings! For today's episode of What Did the Team Do, they'll be showing off some concept art for the project. With that being said, take it away, team!
Hi! Pyramid Guy here. So, like I mentioned prior, I do both programming and concept art for our projects here. One of the first things I actually did for this project was more early concept art for our protagonist. I have got an entire spread of it all, but there's two that stand out. Meet my beloved concepts, now NPCs you'll eventually see in our project, Salt and Pepper! They were kind of last-ditch efforts to fill the page, but their silly little faces stuck around and now they're here to stay. Think of them as that one guy you see around too often. Except there's two of them. And they're also a pair of glass salt and pepper shakers. They don't really do much. They might run a shop. They might run other little groups. Who knows? They're also a pair of stickers. More like a pile. Oh, and they're also not the last little guys you'll see of mine. But I'll talk about the can some other time. That's all I've got for now. See you guys sometime later.
Yo, it's Tree here, and this is my section on what I've been working on this project. I mentioned before in our little intro video, but I do a lot of concept art for the game, especially for our protagonist and the NPCs that we have. These are some of the sketches on my end, trying to figure out what kind of design we should use for our protagonist. I experimented with different kinds of shapes and inspiration, making sure that at least the design was pretty simple so that we could easily model it, rig it, and animate it. A lot of the inspiration for the design of the protagonist does stem from other simple design protagonists, but we have themes along like glass, pottery, ceramics, and all that jazz. I also came up with at least one level design, which is kind of a mix between a glue gun and a torch gun, and it operates very similar to how bazooka or rocket launcher would operate, which would be like you shoot like this one powerful shot, but then you had to reload after that. Here's the part where I talked about all the NPCs I made and concepted. I made a lot of NPCs. Some of the first concepts that I ever made for this project was a very boss-like enemy where it was like a messed up looking vase with teeth and eyes, but also like these shadow-like appendages, so it's got hands and weird feet. And Blasted Vase was one of my first quote-unquote standard enemy designs, where there'd be like, you have multiple of these enemies. It was also a vase design, but would shoot a ball of glass shards towards the player if the player or enemy was in like the vicinity, radius with each other. And the thing with these concepts is that they are very generic in a way. They're designs just based on material that can shatter. So, as I mentioned before, like a lot of vase, ceramic, or glass-based designs. It wasn't until we had this idea of pillar communities in our game that were made of different kinds of materials that ideas really expanded. We moved beyond just shatterable characters, which expands the ideas that we can have for our NPCs. So I really started to experiment with the NPCs that we have at this point. I made characters that were Frankensteined out of stone statues, yard waste and nuclear waste characters, and little plush guys that looked really worn or were sewn together. But yeah, that's all on my end, and I really can't wait to show more once our trailer comes out.